In 1964, 6 months after I graduated from high school, I woke up in the third largest factory in the world, making refrigerators for General Motors, then the largest corporation in the world. And what an education it was for 3 years. One of the main things I learned was about health insurance. And two of my co-workers had their own businesses. One was a dog trainer, and the other had his own TV repair business. But they worked a second job at General Motors, making more money in their own businesses, making more money than I, but they worked at General Motors in order to get the health insurance. And in those days, I didn't think too much about health insurance. And these days, some 60 years later, I wonder why it is that my country, the richest country in the world, doesn't have universal health care. This is the factory today, and it was the topic of the film American Factory, which now makes glass for automobiles. You see the shining glass below the credits of Bill Pugliano for Getty Images. Netflix American Factory was the first film distributed by the Obama's production company, Higher Ground Productions. I said previously that I had seen two different Americas, and I gave examples of shifts in religion and social morals. Well, here's an economic example. When I was young, American factories did not send part of their production to Mexico for cheaper wages. But here, have a look at Ciudad Juarez in 1960, when I was a freshman in high school. Yep, in 1960, there were no factories in Ciudad Juarez, right across the border from El Paso, Texas. But the manufacturing in Mexico grew rapidly in the late 1960s with the end of the U.S. Farm Labor Agreement known as the Bracero Program. This sent many unskilled farm laborers back into Mexico's northern border region with no source of income. As a result, the U.S. and Mexican governments agreed to the Border Industrialization Program, which permitted U.S. companies to assemble product in Mexico using raw materials and components from the U.S. with reduced duties. And this is Ciudad Juarez today, across the border from El Paso, Texas, with 321 manufacturing sites and almost 300,000 workers. Some of those factories are Asian-owned and some are European-owned, but the majority are American. I flew over Ciudad Juarez in 2015 and was stunned by the sea of factories. My AI co-pilot informed me to advise people that Ciudad Juarez is not just about manufacturing, because the Delphi Apted Mexico Technical Center in Ciudad Juarez is the largest of its kind in the world. It's the home to over 1,900 engineers focused on automotive engineer design, research and development, quality assurance and testing of Aptiv systems. The largest in the world, engineering. It's not in Germany, it's not in the United States, it's not in South Korea, it's in Mexico. Viva Mexico. My AI co-pilot said that. And then my AI co-pilot informed me of this. When American factory workers lose their jobs to Mexico, they often lose health benefits as well. Trade agreements like NAFTA have led to a significant shift in manufacturing jobs to Mexico, resulting in many American workers losing their health benefits due to lower wages and better working conditions in Mexico. Additionally, the shift has created a race to the bottom, where wages and benefits have decreased for American workers, further impacting their health and overall well-being. A race to the bottom? Yes, a race to the bottom. It would be good if the lower half of America understood that it is them who is dying in a dying America. In other words, there's no universal health care in the richest country ever. Now, the title of this episode is Hershey's Moved to Mexico. But that doesn't mean that the world's headquarters moved to Mexico, because it is still in the iconic town of Hershey, Pennsylvania. And Hershey, Pennsylvania also produces more Hershey bars than anywhere else in the world. And as a consequence, the entire town has the wonderful aroma of chocolate. In addition to that, Hershey's has a candy-themed amusement park, and over 3 million tourists visit there every year. This is the Hershey Lodge in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which houses tourists. And this is part of Hershey's Park. I've been to Hershey because one of my friends worked in landscaping there, and it is a very unique town in America because the entire town has the aroma of chocolate. Now, when Hershey's began its Mexican production, none of the Hershey, Pennsylvania people lost their jobs. However, my AI co-pilot informed me of this. Hershey's first moved to Mexico in 2007, when it announced plans to close some of the U.S. operations and relocated those chocolate productions to Monterrey, Mexico. This decision was part of a broader strategy to cut jobs and reduce labor expenses, leading to the closing of several U.S. plants and the loss of nearly 1,500 jobs. Health insurance benefits. It all comes down to money. Now, on the Mexican side, the Monterrey Hershey's plant became the 4th largest producer in the world, producing 311 products on 14 molding lines. 311 products. And most of those were exported to the United States and Canada. 311 products, wow. Here, look at this photo. Now, why wouldn't Hershey's just produce their candy in the United States and sell it in Mexico? Well, if it were to do that, it would be too expensive for Mexicans to eat. Let's assume that a Hershey worker made $15 an hour. As of 2026, the minimum wage in Mexico is $18 a day. So maybe now you see why America is dying?
It all comes down to money.
Now, before you become too concerned about the wage differences between Mexico and the United States, food prices in Mexico are anywhere between 50 and 70% cheaper than the United States. And rent can be up to 90% cheaper. Also, Mexico has really good health coverage now, and they're working toward universal health care by 2027. In my country, the richest country on earth, we won't even start talking seriously about universal health care until 2028. What do I think about that? It's evil. But hey, the Dow Jones is up, so the rich are happy. But they're going to tell you that America is not dying. and they probably will acknowledge that the poor are getting poorer. And without universal health care, that's not a good thing.
When will the USA have universal healthcare? I predict it will be after 2028 elections when Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is USA president. Just imagine a Latina being president for the USA. That will be as historical as Obama's election. And of course, an entirely new direction for the USA. That's AOC on the left, tax the rich.
Did Hershey's move to Mexico help the wealthy Americans who own the stock? Well, it went from $49 a share in 2012 to $210 a share in 2026.
Now consider this 2025 headline.
Hershey is raising chocolate prices by double digits. Here's why. And the main reason for the price increase is that the poor farmers in Africa who raise cacao, which is then refined into chocolate, want to be lifted out of poverty. Do these people look like they could use more money? Inflation hits them just like it does the average poor American. Inflation, that's what Donald Trump said he would control when he became president, but he hasn't, and he never will. But let's let the would-be king have the last word on candy. Here's a headline. Here's a paragraph from that article. The two-scoop rule that became national news. During Trump's first term, Time magazine reporters sat down for a meal at the White House. When dessert came out, every guest at the table received one scoop of ice cream. Trump got two. That wasn't an accident. It was apparently standard protocol. The president gets an extra scoop, and everyone else can deal with it. The story spread everywhere and became one of the most bizarre little details that defined the Trump White House. It happened again at other dinners, every single time. Now, coming off that information, we could go a lot of directions. And one is that in dying America, ice cream consumption is going down, but not in any significant manner. But we'll come back to it in the year 2030. In the meantime, might you guess Donald Trump's favorite ice cream flavor? Here's a listing of 10 favorite ice cream flavors in America. It's a little noisy out here today. We might have to use subtitles. But anyhow, apparently Donald Trump's favorite ice cream flavor is not on that list. We didn't really have time to investigate thoroughly. We made a couple of cursory examinations and got conflicting reports. So if you find out what his favorite ice cream flavor is, please let us know in the comments below. Also, we'd like to know where it's made. And apparently, he took that ice cream to North Korea so Kim Jong-il could taste it. And we'd like to know if that's true. So anything that you can do to help, put in the comments below. Thanks. So that you know, there are two distinct Hershey companies in Mexico. They both came to Mexico to save money. One makes chocolate and the other makes ice cream. And we are fans of both companies and both products.